Welcome everybody. Before I do any introductions, I've just got to tell you the difference between having a Master of Teaching group in here versus Bachelor of Education. So you know where I'm going, don't you? Where am I going?
That we're all excited to be here and listening.
There's that bit. And also, man, you can talk, can't you? So it was really interesting. We came in for the Bachelor of Education session, I think at 11:40. There are a few people in here early. And anyway, myself and Christian, who were presenting at the time, we said, hey, quickly introduce yourself to somebody, because it was dead quiet. Whereas you come into this room and you go, I don't think you need much encouragement. So look, welcome to all of you. Fantastic to see all of you here. And we have the youngest member of the group, who's only 4 years of age, doing a Master of Teaching, which is pretty impressive. So well done, clearly gifted. So just by way of introduction, I know these slides are kind of small on here for all of you, and it seems somewhat weird. Why am I using a microphone? Because I could just project my voice, couldn't I? But for the sake of anyone who's online and for the recording we're doing, we need to use it, all right? So my name is Steve, this is me here. Cheeto is alongside me. We work very closely together. So between the two of us, we'll work this out, won't we? Yeah, we'll make it work. So our aim here in the next half hour or so is simply to give you an introduction to the Master of Teaching program. Can we get a show of hands from those of you who are doing early childhood? Who's doing early childhood here? Can you keep your hand up if you went to the session this morning with Rachel Hedger? So some of you went to that session this morning. Fantastic. All right. So some of this you will have heard. I'll try and make it interesting, no doubt, for you. So we'll see how we go. Those of you who are doing primary, have we got people here who are doing primary? Fantastic. Lots of people here. And those of you who are doing secondary. Terrific. So I'm actually the course coordinator for the secondary degree. So I look after Bachelor of Education and Master of Teaching students. But I'm going to give you today information about early childhood and primary and secondary. If there are really specific things to do with early childhood or primary, I'll probably point you in the direction of the course coordinator. Some things I can answer, but if it's really specific, I'd probably prefer that you get the right information from them, okay? All right, one of the things that we want to do, if you can just take me on to the next slide on here, please, Cheeto, is acknowledge the very place we are on today. We're on Kaurna land. And one of the things that I think is really interesting when we think about the significance of place is this place here. Some of you would be familiar with Uncle Mickey, who does a lot of work here actually at Flinders University. And he talks about the fact that this has for over 2,000 generations been regarded as a place where the valleys meet the winds. Now we step outside today and we don't sort of notice those winds today, but I guarantee you, you will notice them at some point in your studies. What he talks about that I love is he said, when you feel that breeze from the valleys actually coming through, it's connecting you to those ancestors from 2,000 generations of people who have been on this land before us. It's a really nice connection to country. So we acknowledge the fact that we are today on Kaurna country. All right, so a couple of things. You'll notice on here, obviously it's orientation week at the moment. We're at the 20th of February. It's sort of, there's two parts to this. So the first part is orientation week. And then when you step into doing classes, say next week, that becomes the Connect week. So there's sort of these 2 week long program. Cheeto, if you're happy to go through to the next for us. In terms of early childhood, I just want to give you a few details here around early childhood, and I'll go through each of the different, I'll sort of go through early childhood, primary and secondary, and then we'll just sort of open up for a little bit of discussion, and then at the end we'll go to question and things as well. So this particular program, it provides you with background and skills necessary to enter early childhood teaching profession. Is there anyone who's already working in that area? Because often we have people who are working within it, but they wish to actually be qualified, you know, at that sort of university level. So we've got a couple of people in that situation. Yeah, fantastic. Okay. So you're going to be working with young people from birth through to the age of 8. So basically you're working, you know, with people before they come into school, but also in those first couple of years of primary school. So you'll gain knowledge of curriculum, studies and theories of education and undertake teaching practice. So you're going to do a lot of educational theory work here, but you'll also then head out and you'll have placement opportunities in various spots as well. So opportunities exist at the end of your degree to work in childcare centres, kindergartens, preschools and year levels, reception and year 2. Next, Cheetah. So for the people doing early childhood, it's a 2-year degree. Now, I think I overheard someone before talking about, because some people in primary, some people in secondary might be doing a 2-year degree or 1.5 if it's accelerated. Either way, it's a whole lot, isn't it? And it's in a fairly short space of time. So you work really, really hard. The early childhood degree, however, is only offered over 2 years. Beyond the topics completed here at university, all of the pre-service teachers actually do volunteer days, which will be happening really early on. And I dare say Rachel would have spoken about some of that before. It's a really good opportunity for people to get into that environment and start working in it. And everything you then do here has a context. But you're also going to be involved in 2 6-week placement blocks as well. So you'll do one in that first year and one in the second year. And you'll see Rachel's details there, Rachel Hedger. Now, it's worth knowing, here's a test for you. Anyone who's doing early childhood, do you know where Rachel Hedger's office is? Because it's useful to know. You know, don't you? Because we talked about it. Where is it? Straight down the hallway, go on the other side, right to the end on the left. That's Rachel's office. Now, if you meet with Rachel, she's brilliant, she's super organised, but please do me a favour. She has the world's neatest office. So I just do this. I just move stuff like that and it messes with her big time. So if you go in for a meeting, just do that. And when she says, what are you doing? Steve told me to do it. All right. All right, we'll go through to the next one if we can, please, Cheeto. You'll notice with early childhood, this is just an example of your study plan. And lots of you will have seen what your study plan looks like already. What this is capturing here is it's capturing your first semester and your second semester for the year. And I know from speaking to Rachel the other day, she's really keen, anyone in early childhood, to make sure that they're enrolled in both first and second semester topics as soon as they possibly can be. All right, let's go through, if we can, please, Cheeto, to primary. For primary, lots of people put their hands up before, so this is obviously for people who are going to be working with students up to year 6. We know that that has changed actually fairly recently. So it used to go to year 7. I was once a year 7 teacher in a primary school, but now we know that that's part of high school. Graduates understand the world from multiple viewpoints and possess relational sensitivity, competency and imagination. And if we go through to the next one, please, Cheeto. There are 2 different options here. And I sort of alluded to this just before, but there's a 2-year option. And then anyone who happens to be perhaps an international student, that's the option you need to go with because it meets your visa requirements. For those of you who are domestic students, however, you do have a choice and you can do the accelerated version. The only thing I would caution you about is, are you able to commit to doing the 1.5 years and do justice to your studies in doing that? Because it's a challenge. We know that you have responsibilities that are way beyond what most of the Bachelor of Education students have, in that you might have families and different sort of working commitments and so on. You're juggling so many different things at the same time, and you really need to think about, what is the course of time that's going to allow me to do this properly? Because what we don't want is people to take those little shortcuts. I'm going to do all the work, but I won't do the academic readings. That doesn't work. So you need to be able to commit to being there for the lectures, engaging with that, being in classes, engaging in those classes. I've got to tell you, this is why I'm working with Master of Teaching students, because the classes are awesome, because people do exactly that. But just be wary, I suppose, of those different expectations of the degree, and we want you to commit fully so that you're prepared for the role you're stepping into down the track. Now, the person to speak to here is Trudy Sweeney if you've got particular questions. She's the course coordinator. These slides will all be made available to you at the end of today, so you can access them if you would like to. So if you've got specific questions, you can go to Trudy. Cheeto, if we could go to the next one, and we've got here just the next one there. That's the one. This is an example actually of a study plan, but you'll notice that there's two versions because we've got a 2-year version sitting there, and we've also got an accelerated version. And just a little note here from Trudy, there has been some topics like 9138, which is sort of this one and this one, have actually been consolidated across the degrees. So hopefully lots of you have already had a chance to look at your study plans. Cheeto, if we can quickly go through to secondary, I want to go through this one and then just open up to some conversation with people. So this is the one that I'm the course coordinator for. So this is for people who are teaching from years 7 to 12. You will have come into this degree having already done some previous study, and you'll have particular areas that are regarded as your major specialisations. So with this one here, you're going to be doing curriculum studies topics in your areas of specialisation. It might be that you're doing, say, maths, or you're doing science, or you might be doing humanities, whatever your particular area is. And then you'll do other topics that are focused on, I suppose, education more generally. So one of the topics that lots of you will be involved in looks at things like, what's the purpose of education? Which is a really big question. And lots of you would be aware that at the moment, the Department for Education is asking that very same question. What is the purpose of education? And when that was posed last week, I put my hand up and said, I think we're asking the wrong question. We need to be talking around plural. We need to be looking at the purposes of education, actually, because when we consider the fact that the student cohort is super diverse, we will not land on one purpose. We will have a plurality, actually, of purposes. So how do we be more expansive rather than more reductive? That was essentially the point. So for those of you doing secondary, if we can go to the next one, please, Cheeto. You do have the option of a 1.5-year version for domestic students or a 2-year version. If you are an international student, you'll only be able to do the 2-year because it meets visa requirements. You will be involved in placement experiences where you will go out in your first year and you'll do 25 days of placement. Second year, you'll do 40 days of placement in a school. And the person to speak to if you've got questions is me. Now, in terms of where my office is, if you go sort of down the hallway and then turn right, my office is just there. It's right near the toilets. Like, how lucky is that? I just say to people, follow your nose, you'll find it. So I'm sort of directly across that way. So if you ever need me, just sort of hop in and say good day. Cheeto, if we can go through to the next one. This is an example of a study plan here. This only looks at the very first semester. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing the accelerated version or the 2-year version, your very first semester looks exactly the same, okay, for secondary. And we'll just go through to one more slide if we can, please. Cheeto, thanks. This is an example of a full study plan. So often when you're talking to course advisors, they're giving you details about what your study plan looks like. And this is an example of a full version. And what we want to sort of recommend to people is follow the advice that you're given around the study plans. Because when people try and do choose your own adventure, it's interesting, but it doesn't always mean that you finish your degree when you're moving, because you end up doing something where we say, sorry, we don't offer a particular topic in a particular semester, so you've just added 6 months to your degree. Right, so please take the advice of our course advisors in that regard. Here's what I want to do. I want to break for about a minute and just give you a chance to talk to the people in your group so far about what are the areas they're studying. Is it early childhood? Is it primary? Is it secondary? And where are each of the people in your group, where are they up to in terms of their study plans? Do they have a copy of this? Do they know about their first classes? Do they know what topics they're enrolled in? Have they been on to what we call Flinders Learn Online, sometimes called Flow? Have you gone on there and had a look at your different topics as yet? Right, so maybe a minute or two with a quick chat just with whoever's at your table group. All right, off we go.
Steve, real quick, just answer the question. Flexible, that's our electives.
This refers to the subject-based topic. What's the question?
What is flexible learning?
Oh, that's curriculum.
Curriculum specific.
Yeah.
That's what I thought so.
Yeah. So the area of specialization. Yeah, thanks, mate. Cheers.
That's 2 semester. No worries. We had a lot of connectivity issues, and one or two students can't see the slides. That's why I was a little bit slower. And that's why
no
you'll
worries.
see me continue to jump back.
Yeah, no worries.
Just to make sure, like maybe moving forward, we just got stuck somewhere.
Right.
So I just let them know. One of our students has significant connection in. Right. And then the same call guy wasn't able to connect.
Okay.
And I think he was running here.
Okay.
And so they all, for some reason, had me.
Yeah, right.
So he just came in and just said, hi, Chief. And I'm like, hey.
Let me just have a look where I'm up to.
Yep.
So just wanna have a quick look.
No worries. Pull it across. Semester.
All right, everyone. We will we'll endeavour to keep going. There will be an opportunity to ask questions and things at the end, so feel free if you've got a question, hold on to it, and we'll come to that. It's really interesting. So Cheeto and I are playing sort of the ultimate team game here. And again, if I go back to the Bachelor of Ed session where we had heaps of people online and heaps of people in here, we got asked a total of that many questions. You're getting smashed by questions here, aren't you? So either I'm doing a very poor job or we've got very inquisitive people, and I suggest it might be the latter, given our experience with Master of Teaching students. So keep the questions rolling in. If you're online, Cheeto's right on it. I just want to go to a couple of things here around the study plans. Obviously, not everyone is necessarily studying full-time, but this gives you a sense here. If you're a full-time student, you're doing 4 topics each semester. Part-time is 3 topics or less. So people do sort of various numbers. In terms of Centrelink, if you're actually receiving government support for what you're doing, that requires that you're doing at least 3 topics at any given time. So just keep that in mind if you're ever looking to sort of change your study sort of pattern, that might be a consideration for some people. We don't suggest necessarily that you create your own study plan, the sort of the choose your own adventure that I alluded to before. So if you're ever wondering about what to do, put in what we call an Ask Flinders request. What happens with that is, Elena, do you want to just give a wave from the back of the room? Now, Elena and her team are amazing. And Elena knows this is true, but often I have a question where I think, how does this work? And I go down and see Elena and her team and they explain exactly how it works in terms of tuition patterns. So if ever you've got a question about your study plan, put it through to Ask Flinders. What happens is it gets triaged out. And in this case, for education, it will come through to Elena and her team, and they will give you excellent advice that is specific to you. Okay. Cheeto, if we can go to the next one, please. Now, in terms of what to expect, if you can just flick through, because I think these are sort of, and just drop them all in at this stage. But a full-time study load is huge. It's 36 hours a week. And we put that on there because we know that people are juggling work demands. And sometimes when you get a person who goes, all right, I do some work. I've got my own business. I've got investment properties. I work about 90 hours a week and somehow I'm going to fit study in. How? How are you going to do this? I just want you to seriously think about the amount of hours that you're required to do here so that you commit fully to that. So for each topic that you're involved in, that's about 9 hours commitment. So it's sorry? I think so. We need to just recognise that when you go and do things like the readings for a particular topic, that's going to take you maybe a couple of hours. You then need to make sure that you're prepared for the workshops that you're going to, so that you've attended the lecture live if it is a live lecture, or you've taken notes if it's an online lecture. And all of these things add up to about a 9-hour commitment each week. And then you have to add in all the other things. Obviously your work, the fact that you might want to get some sleep occasionally, a bit of exercise, a bit of time for you. So just keep these things in mind, so that obviously what we're seeking here is some degree of balance. All right, Cheeto, if we can go to the next one. All right, around attendance, this actually, I don't think we need this slide for Master of Teaching students, if I'm really honest. So one of the topics that that I took last year, which I'll have lots of you in this year, Educ 9120, I think we're at about 99.5% attendance with zero, no pushing. Everyone just rocks up all the time, does the work, does the readings, attends the lectures. There's no pushing. So we put this here because this is a requirement actually of our degree accreditation. So one of the things that happens here is that you know that you can study in some places here in Australia and around the world, and it can be online. Yes, we can do some things online, but this degree, the early childhood, the primary and the secondary MTeach are all accredited for face-to-face delivery. So what that means is that yes, we might do something, you know, online, but the bulk of what we do will actually be in person. And that is because it centres around the belief that we feel that in order to be really well prepared as educators, you need a chance to actually, I suppose, wrestle with some ideas, have debates, have discussions, practice things in a way that's going to help you for the career you're about to enter. So the critical thing here is all of our topics, the learning outcomes, they link to this idea of what has been taught, what has been practiced, and what has been assessed. Now, the bit that you can often do from somewhere else, you might be able to meet some of the assessment requirements. The issue sometimes comes around, if somebody doesn't turn up, how do we know you've been taught this stuff? How do we know that you've had a chance to practice it? So one of the things you'll look at is you'll look at all of these different pedagogical possibilities, like how will you actually do your work as an educator? And it's going to vary depending on context, and the early childhood educators are going to do it quite differently to the person who's going to be working in senior secondary school. And you need a chance to actually try and enact this. And this is the chance to try and do that, okay? So just a quick note about attendance. The next one, please, Cheeto. Lots of you here would know about Landtight. If you can just flick through to each of those, that'd be great. Landtight is basically what you can see here, the literacy and numeracy test for initial teacher education students. This is making sure that people have, I suppose, that baseline level of understanding and competency around English literacy and numeracy. And I know that for some people, particularly if you are an international student, this can be one of those things that you get a bit nervous about. And I understand that completely. So here's what we would suggest as the advice. What you need to do is you need to attempt this in your first year. You don't have to pass it, but you do need to attempt it. Now, for some of you, if you're domestic students, you might say, I spoke to someone earlier today who said, I'm actually booked in tomorrow. I'm doing both, right? They're doing both the literacy and the numeracy. If, however, you're a bit nervous, pick the one that you think you will do better at. So if numeracy is an area you think I'm pretty strong in that, select that first. Do some of the preparation and training for the literacy and do that a little bit further down the track and give yourself the very best opportunity you can. Now, there's a lot of support that the university offers here around Landtight, and in your first few classes, probably across all of your different topics, you'll be supported around where to go for support on Landtight, okay? All right, the next one, please, Cheeto. This again is something that really almost doesn't need to be put up there for Master of Teaching students, but in terms of your email communication with staff here, we simply ask that you do that in quite a formal way. So if you're sending something through to Cheeto, perhaps you start with "Dear Dr. Alozi" and then your message. If you can just indicate what topic you're in and those sort of things, it just gives some context to whatever your particular inquiry is about. And we also ask that you include as an email signature things like your full name, your student ID number, the course you're in, and whether you're in your first year of the Master of Teaching, second year of the Master of Teaching. That becomes also really important when you do your placement, because you'll be liaising with your particular placement school or site coordinators, and we just want that degree of professionalism right from the get-go. Okay. All right, the next one, please, Cheeto. And I might even hand over to you here, Cheeto.
I can, if you want me to.
Yeah, this man can talk underwater, so here's an opportunity. Here we go.
I've never seen these slides before. I'm sorry. Your student ID card. Now, I've just answered this question online about Compass and Ask Flinders, and I've got to stand here so I can be seen by the camera. Request your ID card, obviously, by selecting Order My ID Card under the Quick Links section of Compass. That's the address right there for Compass. What can you use your ID card to do? Well, everything. To get into buildings, to use the library. It also indicates who you are, okay? Particularly on campus, and some of us use this campus extensively after hours. I do quite a bit. And you're going to find that the library is a fantastic place for resourcing and the like. Also grounds you, so having that ID card is very helpful. That's where you can get it. We'll just move on. Now, the USI. This is fairly important, so please, if you've zoned out for a moment, this is the moment to please pay attention, okay? And I'll make sure I stand here so everyone can see this. From the beginning of this year, all tertiary students must have a unique student identifier, a USI, okay? It's very important that new students, particularly for applying for Commonwealth assistance, will need to provide their USI on your Commonwealth assistance form, the CAF, to receive financial help. Now, to check to see if you have a USI, please visit that address to find your USI. If you do not have one, you will need to apply. Now, does the next slide cover?
There's going to be more information coming out on that in your first couple of weeks. Actually, we're just pointing to it today, just so you're aware of it, and then you'll get more information.
I've heard that some of you guys heard here it said one or two places I don't have a USI, go get it immediately. Okay, you will have to provide that to the university. We'll have more information on that in your specific topics, particularly early on. Okay, now my favorite part, parking and transport. You need a parking permit. I'm a New Yorker, okay? And if there's anything New Yorkers fear, it's getting a ticket. I have a fear of tickets like you would not believe. I park in a strange place, I run out and I check my car 4 times. You don't want to do that, okay? So you need a parking permit if you are driving to campus to park here. You can apply at flinders.edu.au/parking. There's a great app. Do you know the app? I forget the name of the app, right? Yes, Cello Park.
Yeah,
Fantastic. You can park on your phone. All right. You can do it by your phone using your license plate number. You guys don't say license plate here, do you? It just makes it 10 times easier. All right. You don't want to get a ticket. I said that already, right? You don't want to get a ticket. The train, the Flinders railway station down at the bottom of the hill, 22 minutes to the CBD. It's pretty good. Okay. And then there's a loop bus. All right. The service that services the entire campus. All right. How many minutes in between the buses?
About 10 to 15. It's not too long.
It's not too long at all. It's fantastic. And there's some people who park off campus and take the loop bus up. Okay. Links the Flinders campuses and to the public transport options. Okay. No problem. Now, scholarships. There's 3 million in scholarships still up for grabs. 400 scholarships, between 1,000 and 20,000 a year, given away based on financial need or academic merit. I suggest that all students, and particularly in the postgraduate space, pay attention to these. I happen to live in the country, and I can tell you right now, there are a number of country-based scholarships for students from the country who are looking to study postgraduate education. So that window hasn't closed yet. Please pay attention there. Okay, there's a site there, students.flinders scholarships. Okay, you'd be surprised at what's available, and it may lessen some of the stress that some of us feel around getting back to study. Okay. Now, safety. So again, this is one of those where we want to pay attention. If you do experience or witness unacceptable behavior or harassment, please make a confidential report. In this, I think that we are members of the community, and such norms we have to uphold together. We have to decide what is acceptable in our space or not, very simply. Okay, and I think it behooves us to support each other in this. Health, counseling, disability services, all right? Study is hard. Schooling is hard. Some of us may struggle sometimes, and some of your friends may struggle sometimes, all right? Through the services of health, counseling, and disability, you can see a doctor or nurse, chat with a counselor, talk with a disability advisor about studying with a health or mental health condition. You can also access self-help resources. Those are the numbers and the emails. There's also an after-hours crisis support line. I suggest that if you do have a diagnosed disability, that you please get the documentation for that and get that to your topic coordinators as early as possible, so that you can receive the necessary support for your services, for your courses. That's the word I was looking for. Finally, some of the structures and organizations that Flinders have. OASIS, our Student Wellbeing Center. There's so much that can happen at OASIS, from the chaplaincy to the mindful yoga to the midday meditation. And the community market, right, which is once a week or something like that. Fresh fruit, vegetables, fantastic. The sort of thing you forget when you start study. Incredibly important. And I think OASIS becomes a great hub for a number of those services that help support who we are as human beings and not just students. Okay. Now, also continuing in the services area, we have a number of spaces to help support you in this space: the prayer room, conversation groups, equal opportunity advisors, Pride networks, and the Good Vibes experiment. If you visit the support tab at students.flinders.edu.au, you'll find out a lot more.
That's really.
Week.
That's just saying,
That's
week
it.
this week, Connect week next week.
Yes. Now what's going on in Connect Week? Oh, wow. I want to be a student again. There's a welcome hub, Unify, there's a quiz night, cosmic comedy show, essentially a great deal of activities to remind you that this is an active and a vibrant campus. I think sometimes they forget postgraduate students need to have fun too. And by the way, I said this to somebody before, many of the topic coordinators and academics you meet, we've been here before. We've been just in this space before. So we understand a bit of what you're going through. So we're not just tossing this out there for fun. Go there, engage with this sort of stuff, right? Become part of this, because I think it's going to help support you, particularly those low moments. All right?
Just on this, one of the things that this was an initiative of Cheeto's actually last year, and it's just superb, where week 3 of the first semester and week 3 of the second semester, Cheeto runs a movie night. And what we do is it's usually a movie that has an educational theme. And it's something that actually works at all levels, early childhood, primary, secondary. And we watch that, and then we engage in this really interesting discussion and debate afterwards. And what we're trying to develop there is a community of practice. It's got nothing to do with assessment. So you're not tested on this in any way. It's simply about people who are wishing to be professionals engaging in professional conversation with each other. And the first one you ran last year, no one wanted to leave. They just all wanted to stay there and keep talking on some of what was actually raised in that. So further opportunities there to be involved. So you'll hear about that as we go. I want to go through, if we can, just to the final screen, which is about questions. Now, before Cheeto and I look to answer any of your questions, what I'd love you to do first is, again, back in your table groups, have a quick conversation to the people next to you to say, well, this is my question, actually. And someone might say, I can answer that. So let's give you the opportunity to pose what your questions are to the group first, and then in 2 minutes' time, any questions that people have got of a general nature, we'll look to answer those. If it's highly specific to you, what I'll do is ask you just to stick around at the end. Myself, Cheeto, or Elena can probably help you out at that stage. So 2 minutes, over to you. Just any questions you've got, pass it on to your group members. Let's go. That's a primary. What did they say? It's shown as.
I've never seen 9121.
That's because it's teamed with 9122. It's linked with it. Is shown as
primary?
5 collaborate with no fictional space. But I'm pretty sure it's just check with them. Is that primary?
Do you want me to
So, Trudy, please, please, you could copy her thing there.
What's Trudy's? Trudy, I got it.
Yeah.
It's a big day over there.
Sorry?
It's a big day.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. All right, team, let's, if we bring the conversation back up this way for a moment, just before we go to your questions, I'm curious just to get a bit of just do a quick temperature check in the room. Who in here at the moment is sort of excited about what they're about to embark upon? Can we just get a show of hands? Who's excited about it? Because when I did my master's, that was me. I was like, I'm going to read everything. And, you know, yeah, I find that sort of study fascinating. Is there anyone here who's a bit nervous right now? Who's thinking, can I do this? And sometimes there's that question. There's almost a degree of imposter syndrome to some extent early on, where you think, am I in the right place? Can I still write essays? Do I know how to reference properly? All of these things that go through your mind. Now, if you're wondering any of these things, you're completely normal. You're probably in the exact right place. And you could see just how many hands went up to kind of go, yeah, I'm a bit nervous about that too. Like, you know, the reality is that sometimes you don't know how to do your master's until you've done it. So you're about to embark on something where you're being incredibly brave. But just take the step and do the work. It will work. And when you've got questions, then go and speak to people like Cheeto, speak to someone like myself, and somehow we work it out together, right? You're not alone in this game. You've got a lot of people who want you to succeed.
Yes. Yes. No.
There's one.
This is really important here, right? This is really, really important. We get excited when you win. I just want you to know that. We get excited when you win, all right? I don't know where this idea came that teachers want to find out where you've fallen. No, we want you to win. This is awesome. I've got small children who live in my house. They're my children. But And in this may be incredibly personal, but so very true. You may teach my children. I want you to be the absolute best. All right. We want to see you win. Okay. So if you're, just to echo Steve, we generally speak with one voice. It really is true. You're here because you're supposed to be here. You're here at the right time. Okay. You really can't forget that part. And when you fall, you were supposed to fall. What are you going to do next? That's the real question. Okay. Please remember that. I think we sometimes forget that just what he said, you don't know how to do masters till you've done it. That's the truth. I'll put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Okay.
One to every person here.
Mm-hmm. And that being nervous, that's the best part, right? When you stop getting nervous, that's when you know you don't care. All right? You're in the right place. Okay. Plus, what am I going to do if you guys don't come to class?
When it comes to things that people are often nervous about, which is, to be honest, it's often essays, it's citations, it's referencing. Well, we actually sort of scaffold a lot of that in what you do. So we do support you along the way. So, we're there to sort of work with you. All right, in terms of the questions, we want to just open it up to the room now. What I'll probably do is I'll repeat your question for the benefit of people online so that they know what question we're answering. If it's an easy question, I'll answer it. If it's a really curly one, I'll pass it to Cheeto. And then at the end, if it's something that is specific to you, myself, Cheeto and Elena will happily stick around for a while and chat. So any questions that people might happen to have, go for it.
So I have a question, like I checked my schedule and like on Monday of the lectures, they are just like in a row. So there is no break. So like what should we do? Like we can move immediately, right? So we will get any break.
Yeah, this is a good question. So on your schedule, it probably goes like say 10 to 12 and then 12 to 2 and you're thinking, awesome, like no break whatsoever. Thanks so much. You will get a break in there. So the way that we run our classes, let's say it's a 10 till 12 class, officially it runs from 10 until 11:50. But what most of, now I know that's still not heaps of time, but what most people will do in classes is they'll go until about say 11:40 or 11:45, which buys you a little bit more time, go to the bathroom, grab something to eat or drink or whatever. So you will actually have a bit of time there. We don't generally get quite the same issue here that some Bachelor of Education students are trying to get from the Sturt campus, which is right down the bottom where you first came in, and they've got 10 minutes to get up here. And I often say, well, come on, you're studying a phys ed degree, like just run up that hill, you'll be fine. But in all seriousness, if you were to come to one of the classes and you're a couple of minutes late because you've been coming from something else, that's okay. All right, it's an adult learning environment. You won't be made to feel bad or anything like that. It's like, no, that's fine. Come on in, join us. All right. So you will get those little gaps in between. Good question. Any others? Yes. So the question for those of you online is about how early on do you sort of learn about placements? Really early on, actually. And it doesn't matter whether it's early childhood or primary or secondary, you'll actually be hearing about that more or less in your very first semester. We have, the way that placements work here is that we have an admin team, which is referred to as the WIL team, Work Integrated Learning. They're based on level 4, and they're the ones who actually organise where your placement will happen. Then they put the details of that particular placement up onto something called In Place, and you'll have access to it. So as soon as your placement has actually been sort of fulfilled at a particular school, you'll see those details come in on the system. But yeah, you'll learn about that really, really soon into your degree, because I understand that people are keen for that sort of information. Yep. Other questions? Yes. No, parking this week is free. How good is that? Wouldn't it be nice if it was always free? Because that would save you having to go in all of those interesting little spots, Cheeto. if you ever have 5 minutes and you've got some time to kill, go and talk to Cheeto about parking at Flinders Uni. It'll be an interesting conversation. But yes, this week,
I just know what to
no worries. He knows how to play that game, yes. Any other questions? Going once, going twice, yes.
You did mention about attendance for lectures.
Yes.
But I know like with it, quite a few compulsory topics that you're teaching, if you're like got an option to have to attend a workshop over a lecture, are they all?
Yes. Yeah, and look, when you've got that sort of clash, probably the first thing, and look, again, master's level students are really good at it. They just communicate and they tell the tutor or the topic coordinator, I've got a clash here between these two things. I need to go to the workshop, and then you'll watch the recording of the lecture afterwards. Yes, they are recorded, and that will be considered as absolutely fair and reasonable. We are going to stick around for a couple of minutes here at the end, so that if you've got questions, by all means, come and talk to us. But Cheeto, I think you've got one more.
It's something that I encourage this. So this is, after a year where I'm back teaching in the MTeach program, and one of the things that I believe that the MTeach program does probably better than any other course we have here, and I think Steve's going to agree with this one, is you guys are probably one of the most cohesive cohorts. You guys use each other really well. So I encourage you to get to know each other as early as possible. You are your best support. All right. You are your best support. That's what I've seen now for 3 years. So in moments like this, make sure you get to see these people around you, start to learn their names, right? They are going to become some of that support to get you through the best times and the worst times. Okay. So on that note, thank you for coming here. Thank you for choosing Flinders. All right. Kick a little ass too. Good. Yeah.
Just to pick up on what Cheeto said, it was really interesting to see last year the Master of Teaching cohort go through the spot where you all went for lunch today. Beautiful spot down there in that courtyard. You would see the Master of Teaching students there in huge numbers doing exactly what Cheeto said, just supporting each other. We then do something where we try and support people when you then enter the profession. So come April, lots of those people will be coming back and they'll be telling the stories about this is the country location where I'm teaching, or this is the city location where I'm teaching. And they'll share some of the, you know, the successes, but they're going to share some of the challenges, and they ultimately continue to help each other. And we're invested in that as well, because academic staff are part of those conversations also, because ultimately we're all education colleagues together, trying to sort of navigate this space as best we possibly can. So to acknowledge your fine efforts today, on the count of 3, we're going to give ourselves one clap. Are you ready for this? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. That was really average. So we're going to try this again. Are you ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Just a one clap. Here we go. One last time. 1, 2, 3. Much better. Well done. Thanks everyone for joining us. Stick around if you've got questions. Thank you.
Yeah, very specific question about a city who stuck in Sydney, can't find a house like that. That's exactly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.